Good morning. I'm Dr. Petra. Welcome to the Science of Mind class, and we're delighted that you guys are here in the room. Guys and gals, I'm from the East Coast. It's always guys. I continually get corrected. And all of you out on Zoom, we're happy to have you with us. We're not yet out on Facebook. We're not sure whether we're going to be on Facebook or not. So if you know of a friend who normally is on Facebook, have them hop over to the Zoom room. Technology is clearly our friend and will continue to work. All right, so we are talking about the creative act, right? When we are intentionally being creative. And in the Science of Mind, we use spiritual mind treatment as one of the primary ways in which we engage in the creative act of manifestation. But there's lots of ways of doing it, affirmations and visualizations, and there's all kinds of techniques from vision boarding to writing your affirmation and posting it on your mirror, to doing affirmative guided meditations. And of course, we teach a very specific technology called spiritual mind treatment, which is a very powerful way of learning to do this. So effective treatment must be independent of any existing circumstance whatsoever, else it will not enter the realm of unconditioned causation. And this is probably one of the most challenging things when we are doing our manifestation work, when we are doing our work to co-create using the universal principles, feeling the impress of life and how it seeks to move as us into the world. We must do our work independent of existing circumstances. Otherwise, we are not in the realm of causation. It will have fallen to the level of those secondary causes which seek to perpetuate themselves in human experience. Now, Ernest Holmes is getting the term secondary causes by the metaphysician who wrote in the early 1900s in England, Thomas Troward. He was not a particularly religious person. He almost never used the word God. He was very much influenced by Hinduism. While he was in India for 30 years. And he wrote so much about the universal principle, the law of cause and effect, how it works, how our minds work, but way before even the advent of the experience of our subjective mind, our subconscious mind that comes to us from psychology, and how much of those patterns that are living back there, right? He was writing about that from his deep study of Hinduism. And so what we don't always recognize is that the science of mind is 50% drawn from Western religion and 50% drawn from Eastern religion, primarily from Hinduism. And that's the notion, this notion of secondary causes. And so when we're doing our spiritual work, when we're doing our manifestation work, we want to move into the level of what's called the absolute, where our cause is the pure idea of something, the pure imaginative experience of something, without falling into existing circumstances, independent of existing circumstances. Otherwise, we are not in unconditioned causation. So what are secondary causes? Secondary causes are conditions and circumstances and things that we think are needed on the way to our manifestation. So I always like to use we use physical manifestations because they're easy to talk about, but it's not just that the only thing we're ever wanting to manifest is something physical, right? Are we on Facebook yet?
You know what? We are on Facebook.
Yay, Ryan! Yay, Ryan!
I broke the code.
You broke the code. Yay! Well, apparently there was some updates and God knows what all. But we're back. We're on Facebook. Thank you so much, Ryan, for making that happen.
Yeah, that was a fun adventure. It goes to kind of like the manifestation process, right? At a lot of times you get encountered with a wall or a barrier, and you don't think that you can get through the wall or barrier, right? But somewhere in the infinite of intelligence, known here in the ethereal internet universe,
Right.
there is a way. And as long as you use your good guide, Google, which in our case would be the Science of Mind book, right? You can figure it out.
Right.
So here
Beautiful.
we are. We're on Facebook Live. Welcome, everybody.
Yay. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for making that happen. I love that, right? And you say something really important, because the wall becomes secondary causation, right? That's what happens, is the wall, the obstacle, it becomes secondary causation. So you know, and again, it's a physical, material example. It just helps us be very clear about what we're talking about. Let's say I decide I want to buy a house, or I want to buy a new house, right? And we can do our manifestation work, and we can focus on the need to sell the house that we currently have, the need to get the mortgage, the worry about whether or not we have the right ratio of debt to asset, whether or not we have the right credit report, whether or not our job can sustain the mortgage payment, right? And so we can get all wrapped up in our manifestation work on all of these individual pieces, which are all circumstances, existing circumstances, which are all then secondary causation. And what we do is that we find ourselves then on this circuitous, torturous path to the end result that we want, because we've decided that we actually know better than the universal principle that actually is that infinite intelligence. And we forget that what we're trying to do, really what we're manifesting, is a new house. I mean, truthfully, the new house could fall out of the sky. It could. We don't have to manage every step of the process. We don't have to focus on every step of the process. We have to focus on the end result, and we have to focus on the cause that creates that end result. Otherwise, we are engaged with existing circumstances. And it is in existing circumstances where the yeah, but comes into play. Well, yeah, but I don't have a good enough credit. Yeah, but interest rates are rising. Yeah, but I don't know that I make enough money. Yeah, but I can't find a house. Yeah, but, right? And so what we do is we end up in a loop of secondary causation. And this is true. This is true just as true if we are doing our treatment work around peaceful relationships. Let's say we have some upsets in relationships. They could be at work or at home, and we're doing our work with peaceful relationships. And so we can become overly invested in the healing of our own consciousness, the healing of the other person's consciousness, all the things they need to fix and change, all the ways we need to improve ourselves, all the things that are wrong, right? And all of those existing circumstances are secondary causation. The sense of peace, the absolute quality of peace, is the thing that is the ultimate cause. Our acceptance of peace is the ultimate cause. And all of those other things somehow must work themselves out. Sometimes the other person does actually change. Sometimes it's our perspective that changes. Sometimes it's both. Sometimes a conversation is serendipitously had. Sometimes the relationship falls away. And we don't have to manage all of those pieces when we're focused on the end result. And we don't have to know how all of the pieces are going to be put together. To rise above the contemplation of conditions is to enter that field of causation which makes all things new in our experience. Now, is this easy to do? No, it's not necessarily easy to do, because we are very convinced that our human experience is reality and that it's real. It certainly is a real experience, and there is no question about it. But it is not causal. What's causal is the mental and spiritual impulse. The mental and spiritual impulse can be in alignment with life's mental and spiritual impulse, or not. And yet it is that mental and spiritual impulse that is causal. From this viewpoint, there is no hard or easy case to handle. It's not hard, nor is it easy. Because in the ultimate causal reality, there is no hard or easy. There simply is cause and effect. Cause and effect. There simply is cause and effect. All cases represent but different phases of our belief, and one would yield to the truth as quickly as another if we were sure of our spiritual position. So we have to yield to the truth of the causal reality and that cause that we are focused on in spite of the conditions, in spite of the experiences that we may be having. And of course, this can be very challenging. It can be very challenging when our bank account doesn't look like we expect it to look, when our spouse or partner doesn't behave the way that we thought it was going to turn out, when things in the national life change in a particular way, in a particular manner, when we discover that old ideas are making themselves known. Again, these are all places where it becomes really challenging. It can be very challenging to hold on to the causal reality, to stand in that causal place. And yet, that's what we do when we're doing our spiritual manifestation work. We do, in our spiritual work, we work in the absolute only. Now, this does not mean that we don't move in the world. Of course, you want to get a job, you send out resumes. You want to change the world, you move your feet, you vote, you march, you work with whatever things are important to you. You want to feel better about yourself, you exercise. But all of those things are done from that causal place that says, I'm doing my spiritual work in that absolute realm. And this can also be really challenging because it can feel like we're lying to ourselves, that we're not telling the truth. But what we're doing is we're telling the spiritual truth. And our human experience may actually be different than that. And our job is to be aware of and to be conscious of that these two things can, and often are different. And it is the work in the causal realm that allows us to move in the human realm with confidence, with faith, with trust, with empowerment, with a deep belief that the law of cause and effect is working. And so if we continually are putting a cause in motion at that absolute spiritual level, right, we're not getting caught in all the how is it going to happen, how is it going to be done, what needs to be done, what needs to be worked on, right? That's where we want to rise above into the causal level. Thoughts are more than things. They are the cause of things. Things have no independent existence since there can be nothing external to some comprehending mind. Our work is done in mind alone, and our entire equipment is thought and a knowledge of the power which it utilizes. Right? When we're thinking and acting and working, we're utilizing a power that is always operative. It's always working. And what we want to do is not disengage. We want to not disengage, right? We may take a rest, we may take a break, but we don't want to disengage from the process. Only when we put our very best into our spiritual work will it satisfy us, right? We often think we have to put our very best into our doingness, into our accomplishments, into our activities. And yes, of course, that's important, but we have to do our very best in our spiritual work. A spiritual power is released through true thinking that is as much a law as is a chemical affinity, right? Which is just the laws of chemistry and how that works. There is no deliverance of the real self without mental conviction, right? So our mental conviction is in the process, in the creative process, that there is a power, there is a universal law, there is a presence that is seeking to move, in the world, in, through, and as us. And the most challenging and rewarding thing is to be able to do our spiritual work without getting caught in the circumstances. Because as I said, it's the minute that we start trying to manipulate the circumstances in our spiritual work that we activate the yeah but you don't understand, yeah but there's this, yeah but there's that, yeah but, right? And so our working in the spiritual work, in the manifestation work, purely at the causal level, is the discipline. That's the discipline that we want to come to. So we're going to stop there. This is a really powerful work. And when you take a course here from us, it's based on Thomas Troward. We have a couple of them. One's called The Mind in the Universe. The other one's called The Creative Process. We spend a lot of time on removing conditions from our causal work. And it is mind-blowing. You want to go and just have your mind blown, right? Is to go a little deeper with this and to really seek to be, and it's not that we're not specific and definite about what our mental work is about. It's just that we're not managing the how. We're never, ever, ever engaged in the how, because we're working with an intelligence and a power that is managing the universe. Knows how to evolve cells, single cells, into complex beings. It knows how to create planets and quasars and everything else over the eons of time. All of that designed for evolution to continue to move forward. That's the intelligence that we're relying on. That's the creative process that we're relying on. And we're relying on the push of life always being for a greater expression of life, for a healthier, more whole, more peaceful, more abundant, more joy-filled expression of life. That is the trajectory of life itself. Otherwise, life would eventually implode. It would eventually just cut itself off if it weren't always seeking to evolve and grow and progress and move it toward greater life. All right, so we're going to stop there, and we're going to see what comments and questions and challenges you might have about this idea that we do not engage with our circumstances when we are doing causal spiritual work. So, Ryan, I'm going to come back over to you, and let's get it going.
Well, thank you very much, Petra, and hello to everybody here in the room that's joining us, and everybody on Facebook now.
Yay!
And everybody who's been here with us on the Zoom room, welcome, and thank you for joining us. I see we have a lot of folks from all over the globe, so we really appreciate you joining us wherever you're at, whatever time zone you're in. Thank you. And for those who are on Facebook, I'd love to see where you're from, so feel free to check in and let us know where you're watching us from.
Good.
So this is an engaging experience, capital E on engagement.
Mm-hmm.
I see a few people already anxious here, right? And we want to hear from you.
Mm-hmm.
And so the way that we do that here in the physical space is, everybody, you ready for this? We raise our hands.
Yay!
All right, everybody, raise your left hand. Raise your right hand. Now raise them together. And wave them in the air. All right, there we go. So now we know it works. And you can go ahead and raise your hand. For those who are in the Zoom room, you can hit the raise your hand icon in your lower hand corner, wherever it is on your phone or your device. And I see a bunch of people doing it already. Don't get ahead of me, everybody. Okay.
We'll raise our hand back.
I can see a few of you know how to use that button, and we love it. Let's see if the rest of you know how to use the button. Go ahead and hit the raise your hand icon, and let's see that light up. And for those who are joining us on Facebook, you can put your questions and comments inside of the chat, or feel free to raise your hand at home. I'm just kidding. You don't. You can, but I can't see you. You can put your questions and comments inside of the chat, and I'll bring that into the room. And for those who do put their questions inside of the chat, just know that I keep those confidential. That way we can create a safe container for spiritual growth.
Right.
And so I do see somebody here in the Zoom room that wants to speak, but I want to poll the room here in the physical space. Anybody have a question, comment? Going once, going twice.
Oh, right back here.
All right. Oh, I forgot. We have the iconic Richard here in the house. So he's helping me today with the microphone. And for those here in the room, just go ahead and say your name and what the question is so those online can hear you as well. All right.
My name's Catherine. Hi.
Catherine.
I am so caught up in some kind of disconnect or confusion that I have with staying in the causal, and then we do take certain steps. Like, for example, if I want to buy a home, I'm going to call a realtor, and I'm going to be thinking about which realtor.
Right.
I'm going to be giving her a list of the homes I'm most interested in because she's given me a list, and I'll pick which ones. I'm thinking about the application I'd have to fill out, blah, blah, blah. But when I'm actually taking those actions, I have some kind of disconnect with thinking, I feel like I start going back into that I'm having to do, that I'm doing all this work, which causes me anxiety and overwhelm and stress.
Right.
And and then I will stop and go back to the causal, but it hasn't been as easy, or as I don't know, something about it is
Right.
more stressful and full of anxiety than I want it to be.
Good. Good. And thank you for sharing that. And I'm sure that you are not alone in that, right? And so this is the double vision that we have to have. More importantly, our causal work, when we are really in our causal work with deep conviction, we find a place of trust. Because we know the answer, the outcome has already been demonstrated in consciousness. So now I know that whatever realtor I pick is going to be the one that is in alignment with my end result. I know that my application is going to work out effortlessly because that too has to be in alignment with my end result. What I don't do is I don't spend a lot of time on that in my causal work unless I really find myself stuck along the way, right? We can always stop along the way and do causal work about a particular step. But what we don't want to do in our causal work is muck it up with us trying to figure out like what's the sequence of events and all of that process, right? Because now we're really getting in the way of everything, right? What we want to do is imagine ourselves signing the papers at closing and getting the key and walking into our new house, right? As if we're using a house as an example, and that everything has gone forward, and that if there's let's say the realtor can't find the right house for us, well, it might be that we just get to say, oh, well, this realtor isn't actually a part of the outpicturing of my new home. So let me just trust that I'm going to be guided to the right place. Or let me trust that I have intuition that I need to shift where I'm looking for my house, right? All of that becomes, instead of anxious and I gotta figure this out, I'm just trusting that the process is going to be unfolded because the end result is what I've done my spiritual work around. And when we find ourselves anxious or overwhelmed about the process on the way, what we have to do is really then confront the conviction that we have in the process and just sit down, do another spiritual mind treatment, another causal spiritual mind treatment, and just keep working at that end result, because that will pull us towards it. And we have to get used to not being anxious. Most of us are conditioned to be anxious and worried and overwhelmed. We're conditioned to do that because we think that's how you're supposed to do life. And we think that it looks weird. It's weird when people, how can it be so easy for you? Like, oh, you're so lucky. No, No, that's what it looks like when somebody's wandering around in life with their trust intact. And so we get to also have it that easy. And so that's our work, right? That's our work. And so it's the growing edge of our conviction. What you've talked about is the growing edge of our conviction in the creative process. So thanks for sharing that, Catherine. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, because that was so uplifting, because you showed how to actualize and bring forth the trust in the actual process. You know,
Good.
choosing that rather than getting caught up in
Yes.
anxiety or worry, but going
Yes.
straight to the trust, like, oh, this is exactly what it's
Yes.
supposed to be. Oh, this is,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, I don't generally use the words what it's supposed to be. I simply really spend time on I'm trusting the process, I'm trusting the process, I'm trusting the process. And I'm trusting my own intuition along the way, right? And so if something isn't coming out right, I'm listening to my own intuition and I'm listening to the feedback of the universe. Is this the right realtor or not? And if it continues to resonate, it is, great, I'm going to stick with it. If there's something that, then I might decide, maybe I'll look for a different realtor. If there's something about the mortgage company or the, right? But that's the dance we're in with the universe along the way. And so I don't think of it as it's supposed to be that way. It is our simply walking the path. Right? I mean, the path, if you think about a forest path or a path through the woods or a path through the fields or even a path through a city, there's nothing about how it's supposed to be. It just is what it is. That's all. It just is what it is. And so am I going to trust that I'm walking down the right street? And if I feel a nudge to turn left, then turn left. And do you see? And so it's our dance now with the creative process. And each time I go back to, I trust the process, I trust the process, I trust the process. And you're welcome. Thank you. Okay. And we have another question here.
Yeah.
Or you want to go to the Zoom room?
Well, let's
Or
do
comment.
this. Let's go to the Zoom room, and then we'll come to you here in just a second, JL. And so, Connie, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and join the conversation?
Good morning, Connie.
Good morning, teacher. Good morning, everyone. Just a couple things. I'll make them quick. I started doing transcendental meditation in 1970. It's been a long time. It is also based in Indian spirituality because it came to the West through Maharishi Mahesh Yogi from India, and so that is one of the reasons why I felt so at home at CSLDallas, because it was what I already knew and I resonated with.
Mm-hmm.
On the spiritual mind treatments, when I first started doing spiritual mind treatments, what was happening was thoughts about conditions in my life were going to be in the actual speaking of the spiritual mind treatment.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the things that helped immensely with that is going to the dialogue room, which is a circle at CSL, because there they teach us not to even think about what I want to say while I'm listening to another person, but truly, deeply listen and don't interrupt, and then speak when you have, an opening. And that's helped me. It's totally changed my life. It's been absolutely amazing. And that's helped to support me, allow those intervening thoughts during a spiritual mind treatment, and it's working.
Beautiful.
And just focus on it.
Right. Good.
Finding it effective that way. Yeah, it's still a process.
Yes. Thank you, Connie. Thanks for sharing that. Right, and what you're illuminating is the discipline that this is. This is a discipline, this spiritual work, right? And there's a lot of popular wisdom. Oh, you can do what you want, you can think whatever you want, and then you just, somehow magically it appears. No, it's a discipline, which is the other reason why we spend time on mindfulness and meditation. Those are both tools that teach us mental discipline and how not to spin out or get caught on those thoughts to the best of our ability. And as Connie said, for most of us, it's a work in progress. Beautiful. Thanks, Connie. All right.
Hi, this is JL.
Hi, JL.
Hi. I'm going to use an analogy because we always talk about this dancing with the universe, right?
Uh-huh.
So what happens when the universe wants to do the cha-cha slide and you just want to do a two-step? Like, it happens a lot. I feel like I've asked for stuff, I've manifested stuff, and the universe is like going faster than I wanted to, I guess, or moving faster than I think it should, or it's not exactly what I asked for. Like, we're on a different page here, universe. I thought I caused this, and instead, I feel like it's moving a little faster than I wanted it to. So, if that makes sense.
Well, sure. Just slow it down. Just say no. That's all. You can just say no. I know I'm not ready for that yet. Right? Because you're in charge. The universe is only providing to you what you asked for. And when it starts working and it's too fast and we get all wigged out or afraid or it's overwhelming, right, then we can say, oh, I'm not ready for that. And we get to do that. It's your life. The universe has no opinion. Doesn't think, JL, you should be doing this, right? It has no opinion. It only wants you to be joyous, happy, and free. And so if it feels like it's going too fast or it's not exactly what you wanted, then you get to say, oh, well, this isn't actually my manifestation. It's close, but it's not actually my manifestation. And so I'm going to not do it. It's so interesting. We have to learn how to say no to the things we need to say no to, right? It's really important. We have to learn how to set our boundaries and say no to the things that don't work for us. But the next step is learning how to say no to things we want to say yes to. Because there's always too many of them. When we're really in the groove, oh my God, they come fast and furious. And all those opportunities and all of them, and we don't need to be afraid. Oh, I used to be afraid if I said no to any of them, somehow I was like saying no to the universe. And the universe would say, oh, you don't want my good? Well, I'm going to withdraw it from you because you're not accepting it. Well, except that, do you understand, it's a principle. It's not an anthropomorphized deity. It has no opinion about it. And so what I'm doing is exercising my power of choice. And I'm exercising the choices in my own life. And I'm exercising my freedom to choose. Not quite yet, not now, not this, not that. And continue to move in the creation of the life that we're seeking to experience and express. And so you get to do that. And you can say to the universe, no, I don't want to cha-cha, sorry. I need this, I would like to have this different. Right? Because then you just shift your spiritual work. Yes, same result, same end result, but not like that. Oh, okay. So don't be afraid to be in the dance. You are also leading. That's what it means to be in the dance. Sometimes you're leading, sometimes you're following. And when it's really in the flow, of course, we hardly know. It's such a, right? But sometimes we have to say, no, I'm leading right now. I'm leading right now. This is not where I want it to go. This is not how I want it to go. And we get to do that. So I hope that helps you. I want to give you permission and not to be worried about that somehow you're causing a problem by saying this is a little too fast for me. You get to set the pace. You absolutely do.
If I can add to that.
Uh-huh.
Sorry, you just got my wheels turning. So so leading and trusting, I would say is hand in hand, right?
Yes.
So, I guess because of the spiritual background I have, trusting would mean I need to start cha-chaing because you're cha-chaing, spirit, right?
I'm trying to find, I'm thinking of how do we think about that differently?
Sorry.
No, it's good because we're all in the same boat, right? We all have the same, if we're going to use the dance analogy.
She stumped the minister,
No,
everybody.
No, it's good. if we're going to use the dance analogy,
You got
right,
the-
there's a
you
number
got the
of
golden token.
different ways to think about it. One, you can in fact say, oh, I guess I'm going to learn how to cha-cha. Wow, that's kind of cool. Two, you can say, I think I'll sit with this one out. I don't really like the cha-cha. I don't want to cha-cha. You can, three, say, no, really what I came here to do is salsa. So we're going to salsa. Right? Any one of those three are available to you. Why? Because you have the freedom to choose. This is why I don't use the word supposed to. I never, ever, 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 ever use the word, this is what is supposed to happen. Because this is only what is happening as a reflection of whatever has set all of these causes in motion. And if we decide that's not what we want to do, we are free to choose and say, no, I don't want to cha-cha today. I actually came here today to salsa. So let's salsa. Or, I'm going to sit it out. No, this isn't, right? Sometimes I have to say to myself, if this isn't working out, this is not the answer to my spiritual mind treatment. I don't have to shoehorn it in to fit, even though it's close. Bingo, right? I don't have to do that. I don't. I can say this isn't the answer. Or, I can go back and give a new direction to the universal law, to the principle, and say, well, you're close. Not quite. Let's try again. You get to say that too. You are free to choose. There's nobody out there that says you have to do it a certain way, right? And that's where the challenge is with our dualistic spirituality, because we still think there's something anthropomorphized out there. There is a loving presence, but it is the presence of love. It's not a being that has an opinion about how we are showing up. It's just love pouring itself out on us. It's just life wanting to be us. It's just the push of expression. And we're constantly having to fight against giving it some kind of anthropomorphized opinion about our lives, right? And that's just an ongoing healing of duality. I saw a hand in the back there. And
Yes,
so
and JL, I'll be giving you your $20 later. Go ahead and say your name and ask your question.
My name is Shane.
Hi, Shane.
And mine's not as much of a question as is kind of a follow-up with
Good.
what she was saying, is that, and it's a beautiful illustration of the dance, but for me, and I feel like I'm in this moment right now where it's not the cha-cha and it's not the salsa, but I'm just going with my own flow and making up what it is.
Yes.
And so there's just that moment where you feel it take over, and it feels like that, and it's like, well, let's redefine something. This doesn't have to be the salsa, and then you find yourself in that place where you're leading again,
Yes.
which is just a really exciting and beautiful thing. So thank you
And
for
I
sharing
love that you threw that in, right? I mean, that's what's been going on for years, right? And breakdancing and hip hop and all that. I mean, it's all just new moves. It's all just new dancing, right? And then we had class. I mean, I grew up and I did ballet, tap, and toe dancing. 9 years of ballet lessons till they decided that I didn't conform to what a ballerina looked like, which basically meant I grew too tall and I had too big breasts. So I didn't conform, so they kicked me out, right? But that was for years. And then all of a sudden modern dance, and then now modern dance with all the various African or Caribbean different engagements, right? And it completely changed, right? Making up new expressions, new ways. And that's then I think the next place, which is a really powerful creative place. Because then we are truly co-creating. No, I'm going to feel into what's my dance. What's my dance? What's my dance? What's my rhythm? What's my timing? What's my pace? What's my dance? Yeah. So I love that you added that, Shane. Thank you so much. It's really beautiful. Yeah. And then the part of the dance too is the listening. The listening on the one hand is what it means to be a good follower, right? Sometimes you're leading, sometimes you're following. So following is both trust and listening to the feedback. But in the listening is also the question of, am I enjoying it? Do I like this? Is this good or not? And that's where we then shift into leading. and then we're listening, and then we're leading, and then we're listening, and then we're leading, and then we're trusting, and then we're leading, and then we're moving, right? And that's ultimately the dance that we're in. Along the way, we're never giving up the end result, but along the way, we're in that process. Ryan, I saw that you had something.
Yes, I have lots of things.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a couple hands that are
Great.
up here in the Zoom room. And I also posed the question, what kind of dance do you feel like you're doing with the universe? I had some interesting answers. I like the mosh pit the most. That one, I know in my teenage years, was probably the dance I was doing with the universe.
I know, but I like that part in the mosh pit where they pick you up and over the top, right? I love that part. I could be in that part.
Yeah. All right. So I see we've had these hands up for a little
Good,
while,
let's
so
do
I'm
it.
going to go into it, and if you answer, then great. So the first person I'm going to call on is Glow. Glow from Mexico. Are you there with us?
Hi,
Hello,
Glow.
Going once. Going twice.
There she is. There she is.
I just raised my hand because I wanted to say hi to everybody, but I have something I want to talk about.
Good.
I really struggle with not absorbing and falling into the rabbit pit with circumstances. I'm thinking right now I have a dear friend that is just going through some horrific circumstances. And I'm applying the spiritual principles that I know that good will come of it, but it is just, I'm hurting for her so bad because she's in a lot of physical pain and emotional pain as well.
Yeah.
I know that this tends to be my nature. I tried to practice hypnosis at one time, and I found myself hypnotizing myself.
Wow.
Very effectively, maybe more so than my clients. Anyway, I just wanted to address my particular
Yes.
nature of
Yes.
absorbing
Yes.
and yet holding strong to those principles
Yes.
that I know are true.
Thank you, Glow. I really appreciate that you spoke that into the room, right? Because we're not robots. We're not intended to be robots. And that means we have our feelings. We have our feelings. There's a reason why we have our feelings. That's part of the human experience that we're having. And so our engagement is this too is a dance, that it's okay to have our feelings and then spend our time in our spiritual work. And then when the feelings come up again, let them come up and out, have the experience of the feelings, and then go back into our spiritual work. The truth is we are complex enough beings that we can actually have these two things going on simultaneously. I'm serious. We can know the spiritual truth while we are compassionate with our friend, even hurting for our friend, hurting with them, right? While we're knowing the spiritual truth at the same time. And this is because we are so much bigger than the circumstance or condition. So don't be afraid of feeling it. What you do want to do is, of course, as you said, not get so in the rabbit hole that you forget your spiritual truth. That's the anchor, right? Then I can have the feelings, but I'm anchored. And I have the feelings and I'm anchored, right? That's the dance there. Thank you so much, Glow, for sharing that. All right. I think we're running out of time. Do we have time for one more? Are we moving on there, Ryan?
Well, unfortunately, we're moving on.
Okay.
But I want to say now, I want to lead back to this because this is important, y'all. The classes here at CSLDallas, they take us a little bit further down this idealism. And you hit on one of them that I personally really love, which is Thomas Troward. Now, believe it or not, there's a class that's coming up, which is called From Whence It Came, which goes over not only Thomas Troward, but Emma Curtis Hopkins and Ralph Waldo Emerson, I believe, as well, too. So that one's coming up, and I definitely recommend taking a look at our upcoming courses and classes if you love this type of stuff. So
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks, Ryan. All right, so we will continue these conversations. And so, yeah, so this week, like, pay attention to this, I mean, sometimes it's a tug of war, right? The tug of war between cause and condition, and just notice it. That's the reality. That's just what is. And the question is always, how much attention are we going to pay to one or the other? And when are we going to pay attention to one or the other? And to be in that beautiful dance and that beautiful flow. So we'll see you next week. We'll see you in 30 minutes at our celebration. We'll see you in classes. We'll see you when we see you next. I so love spending Sunday mornings with you guys. Thanks so much. Bye for now. Okay. Yay. So happy to see all you guys and gals.